This is Laura Vanderkam. I'm a mother of 5, an author, journalist, and speaker.
And this is Sarah Hart-Unger. I'm a mother of 3, a practicing physician, and blogger on the side. We are 2 working parents who love our careers and our families.
Welcome to Best of Both Worlds. Here we talk about how real women manage work, family, and time for fun. From figuring out childcare to mapping out long-term career goals, we want you to get the most out of life. Welcome to Best of Both Worlds. This is Laura. This is episode 220. We will be talking all things coupledom in this episode. You know, when people are raising families and building careers, time for your partner might be somewhat limited. I was at a lunch recently where a couple of us at the table had children and a couple did not. And a young lady across the table was sort of asking, we were talking about how we're spending our time. And she's like, oh, and your husband, what about that? And the lady next to me is like, oh, yes, that person. So it can get like that occasionally, but we hope not, because it turns out that spending time together is helpful for building a long-term relationship. And it turns out there's actually some interesting research into time use, finding that while people are spending more time with their children now than in the 1960s, and that goes for both men and women, interestingly enough, they are spending measurably fewer hours per week with their spouses in lone adult sort of time. So, there is a real change going on there, that people are spending more time with their kids and less time with their partners. And of course, that can make it challenging to keep your relationship going strong. So we're going to be talking about ways to keep your relationship feeling connected in the course of the busy years. So Sarah, a quick recap of how you met your husband and how long you've been married.
Yes. So we met in 2002, right in the beginning of med school. We were dating by the first test, and our first date was like Labor Day. So we are coming up on next year will be 20 years of knowing each other. That also means that I was like basically a child when I met him. I mean, it didn't seem that way then, but I'm like, wow, I was 22. That is quite young. Closer to Annabelle's current age than my current age, if that gives you any perspective. And we got married in 2006. So we are 15 years married.
Yep. So we met in early 2003 in New York. I was living there and went to a bar one night to meet some friends, and he was there with them as a work event, and started dating shortly thereafter, got married in 2004. So it has been, what does that make, 17 years since this fall. And yeah, you have a family of people who've been married a long time too, right? Your parents have.
Yes. I was just going to comment that was a quick courtship on your
Oh, yeah.
part.
We got engaged on our 1-year anniversary of meeting and then got married about 6 months later.
Aw, that's so cute. My parents have been together. They're going to kill me. It was either 74 or 75. I always mess that up. My husband was born in 74. I think it was 74. Anyway, so that would give them, I think, 48 years, which is a lot, or 47 years. And my husband's parents got married in 1969, and they were 19 years old.
Oh, that's so cute. Well, people did that then.
They're still together. We celebrated their 50th anniversary. And yeah, they looked like not even fully grown on their wedding pictures.
Well, obviously, you obviously met Josh when you were a baby, as you said. But I mean, when you do meet people that young, it's like you had to grow up together. And I guess obviously some people grow up not together then as they realize more of who they are as adults. But it's really wonderful when people did manage to go through that early adulthood and realize that they do want to continue to be together.
And it's interesting. Sometimes I'll hear stories about, divorce, where people will talk about how they were young when they met and they just like grew apart. But that's, of course, valid. I feel, though, in our case, to some extent, meeting so young, we've influenced each other's paths. Like we've probably become very different people having been together for that long than if we just met each other yesterday. So I guess sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Thus far, it has worked for us, which I'm grateful for.
Yeah. No, my parents got married in 1967, so we celebrated their 50th anniversary in 2017. We all rented a beach house for a week, and my brothers and me and my older brother's family. My mother-in-law and father-in-law were married for a great many years, over 40 years, until he passed away. So, it's great to have those that model for staying together for a very, very long time. And even my husband's siblings they're all still together more than 14 years. My older brother has been married for over 25 years now. So, and as we're recording this, I'm going to go this weekend to my little brother's wedding, which is also very exciting. He's actually been already married for about 10 months, but they had a COVID wedding when it was by Zoom. So that was slightly, as you did, but now we're going to have this celebration, and that should be really exciting. We're very happy to have her in the family. But, couple time can be challenging, and we want to stay together and have these sort of 50-year marriages that last till you're dead. So how do we get to ourselves to that point? I don't know how you guys feel. I feel like we're in a high stress stage at the moment between the 5 kids, including the toddler, the dog, which is more of a source of stress than perhaps other people have experienced a dog to be. But I'm not much of a dog person. I'll put that out there. So it's been an adjustment for me. Career stuff as usual, the home renovation, putting a home on a market. It's just a lot of things, and we feel very lucky that we have good systems in place where stuff happens and it's not a disaster. Like, we didn't have our van for 10 days because our van was hit in the Target parking lot, causing some serious damage to it. We had our, as we're getting the house ready to put on the market, had the hurricane come through and had a leak associated with that we just got fixed, but that was involved a lot of work with that. And, great when your roof repair runs thousands of dollars more than you originally anticipated it would run. These sorts of things, it's just like constant stress, right? And so, I love my husband dearly, but it's like when all this is building up, it can be hard to be in a good mood with each other. And we try. But I actually read a book a couple years ago that I thought had an interesting take on this, which is that it helps to just recognize that these stressful periods are not going to be the best times of your marriage. That if you hold out the expectation that they are, then you'll just be bitterly disappointed, which adds to the trouble. But if you know that this is the years where you're sort of like, okay, we're just getting through. And when good things happen, if we're still enjoying each other, then that's good. We're hanging on. And there's something just to be said for that. So not to imply that things are in any way troubled, but I found that very comforting that, if the expectation is only that you are hanging on, and in fact, many things are going really quite well for us, then we're good. I mean, what do you think? Are you guys in a particularly stressful time, or now that you don't have a toddler anymore, is it getting better?
It is a little easier.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, Genevieve still knows how to throw a tantrum that seems like a toddler sometimes. So it's not like we're on easy street. I think one thing that has helped us is that if there's a particular time of day or routine that's a pain point, really taking a deep dive into what makes it suck and being very explicit about whose job is whose and just dissecting it. And I feel like we spent a long time on bedtime, and then we spend a long time on mornings, and sometimes you have to circle back to each of them. I feel like we are, and it also may be the ages of our kids and them being able to do more things, we're in a somewhat less stressful phase right now. I feel like we have a good amount of, all the kids going to the same school definitely helps. One drop off. Having enough backup childcare absolutely helps. And I think we've gotten a little bit better at I will just say to him, you don't like when I remind you that we have to leave in 5 minutes 10 times. So I'm telling you right now that it's 7:55 and you have to leave at 8:05. And if you take the kids to school late, you're going to have to walk them to the office and whatever. And then usually that's then I can disconnect and he can usually succeed, because I think when he knows he's not going to get any prodding, then he's like, oh, yeah, okay. So, and probably the same thing goes to me. It's just harder to identify my own things that I struggle with. Probably sometimes I would try to fit in a shower after a workout, in a time frame that didn't really exist. And now I've gotten more realistic about what that looks like. But it took really deep diving into if 6:45 to 7:15 is a very bad phase, how can I minute by minute make it less so. So doing that and then like looking at bedtime, that kind of a thing has I think helped make the moments that can kind of make or break your day sometimes feel a little bit better, and that helps our relationship.
Yeah, definitely. And examining the pain points and seeing what you can do to solve them. Our morning is like currently one long pain point, but we're not sure what can be done about that until we don't have three children, I mean, four children in three different schools that have entirely different start times. Not much to be done about that at the moment. Hopefully, we'll figure something out. So, one of the rules from Tranquility by Tuesday, which is the book I'm writing now, is 3 times a week is a habit. And I actually profile a couple that had been, trying to figure out how to have more couple time. And they had in the past had it because they had very young children who went to bed at like 7:30. And if they didn't go to bed till, let's say, 10:30, it's like they were both there from 7:30 to 10:30, even if they weren't interacting the whole time. It's just they had some element of time that was just built into their day. And of course, then children grow up as children do. They were, staying up later. That time disappeared. And plus, some work schedules shifted. So people were starting work earlier. And so it's like the evening went from 3 hours that you could potentially have together to like 5 minutes, basically. And so it just was no longer an option. And so they were trying to figure out how to, not be like ships passing in the night. And so they identified 3 specific times of the week that it worked for them to have even just like a 15-minute conversation or to sit together and do something that's not involving the kids. And so that might be helpful for people to think about. Are there 3 moments within the week that you can consciously connect in whatever way that is? But, it might be sitting together and having a drink after the kids go to bed, even if it's not that much time. It could be that you, walk your dog together if that's what you have. It could be that you sit on the porch together at a certain time when the kids are occupied, or that one day your sitter stays late for 30 minutes. Or if you do have older kids, maybe you can leave them home alone and you go quickly out to do something for just even 45 minutes, like go for a run together could be an option. But figuring out where that can happen can be really helpful for people. So Sarah, what are your sort of, because you also don't have really weekday evening times together.
No. Well, I will say we are continuing to work on bedtime. And when we get the kids to at least read in bed, it doesn't necessarily lend to like super private time, but at least we could like watch a show in bed, which we actually got to do on Sunday night. It was like a miracle. So I do think that like, again, really honing in on those routines. If we make it so that like the kids know after a certain time they're reading, that will lengthen our window. And even if it's not every day, because it's not feasible to do that every day, but if they know, let's say like Sunday is for extra rest, then we might, be able to carve some time there. It is really, really hard though. And I think for us, we've made more use of like babysitters and mini trips and stuff. Let's take a quick break and then maybe we can talk more about like the kind of date night aspects of things.
Well, we are back talking all things coupledom, how busy people can make time for their partners during those years when it seems like every minute is spoken for. So, when you guys do date nights, what do you actually do? We've been trying to sort of think past the dinner out. Not that there's anything wrong with a dinner out, but it doesn't always work for evening time. So, what have you been up to?
So to be fair, we didn't do date night for like all of the pandemic until recently. But, back in the before times and now what we're sort of starting again a bit, we did go out to dinner the other day with our friends, which, is social and fun. And we ate at this beautiful outdoor place. It's called Yacht in Fort Lauderdale, YOT, lovely. Anyway, so that's, obvious but fun. We used to have a parenting book club that was like kind of a social thing that we would do together with friends at different people's houses. And we would discuss some sort of like kid related topic, but we didn't always, spend much time on that. We've gone to Miami Heat games before. We used to go to movies. So we were actually getting really into going to movies right before the pandemic hit. I have friends that do like a nighttime yoga class together. I don't know if I could convince Josh, but I would totally be into that. I've also had friends that talked about like massage dates, like, ooh, like go get a massage at like 5 p.m. or something, and then like head out to dinner afterward or something. So yeah, And a super mundane one. Sometimes if there's like a boring thing we have to buy, it could be really fun to do that as a date night. I like have fond memories of like going mattress shopping.
Mattress shopping.
I remember we were just so, I think Genevieve was like 1 year old or like some hard age. We were like so giddy to leave the house and like go to like mattress stores and try out some
Totally
mattresses.
get it.
And then I think we
Totally
ended up
get it.
like ordering a Casper mattress on
Of course, of course. So yeah, we are going to be doing a double art museum date on an upcoming Friday. The one that we're going to closes at 5, so that requires an early day. And so we block the calendar from like 3:30 on Friday afternoon, go there. And then we will, go to the second one right afterwards, the one that has later hours. And so that, would be 3:30 to 7:30, but it's something that would be definitely not going to do with the kids. They'd be like, one museum is bad enough. What do you mean I'm going to 2? So yeah, that's going to be hopefully a good one. Some couples come up with some sort of hobby they can do together. Like you said, the yoga class. I've definitely heard of a few people who have hired trainers who come to their house. And if there's a time that the two of you could do, like, let's say you start work at 9, if you're both working from home, and maybe you have your sitter come at 8 or something. And then you have that hour that you could do a training session, 45-minute training session, then shower. So that could be something that people do, or a hobby. My parents do crossword puzzles together. It's very cute. So, nobody likes to do puzzles with me, but I'm throwing that. So maybe that's something somebody else would want to do. Like literally nobody else in my house wants to do my puzzles, but whatever.
We had a crossword phase that ended way before kids, but it was fun. It was definitely fun. And then watching TV shows together. And by the way, this can be even fun when it's a little bit asynchronous. So I have to admit, sometimes it can be hard to find that time when I'm still like awake enough to actually watch a show when he's here. And so in the last episode of Best of Both Worlds, I mentioned loving White Lotus. Well, we watched it together but apart. Like we were kind of like, okay, I'm on episode 3, and then he would catch up and watch it. And we watched it pretty quickly, but I don't think we saw any of it actually together. But the fact that we were both watching it like concurrently kind of meant we could talk about it. And even that was kind of fun. And that led us to start watching another one together. But not that I'm saying like that it really counts as time together when you're watching TV desynchronously. But, if you are in a long distance kind of a situation, or, maybe your husband's on a business trip, Netflix does have this cute thing where you can like watch like simultaneously and then like text each other while it's happening. So that could be kind of fun.
Sure, why not? Many years ago, we watched the Jon Stewart, The Daily Show, but when that stopped, we didn't find another one that we didn't find obnoxious. And but sometimes we watch, football together. We watch Texas A&M football in our family, and there's a tradition that when the team scores, you kiss your sweetie who's there. So if there's a touchdown, we're supposed to kiss. They're not really doing that well this year, so there's less kissing. You gotta hope that if you're into that, you want to have a high scoring team, but different years don't work out as well. Their quarterback was injured.
That is so funny. And then another thing that we like to do together that's like kind of maybe boring or business-like is just like planning. So like we have taken some dinner dates where we just sit there and like plan the next few months and what we want to do, long-term travel planning. And then every quarter we like do a little mini financial plan where we look at all of our accounts, see where we are, see how if we earned or lost since the last quarter and what's going on, and make any adjustments. And I actually find it really kind of fun because it's more like future focused. Like, okay, we always do a little, even though I have no real desire to retire early, we like to complete this like fire calculator every time. So we're like, this is how long until I don't really need to work and it's voluntary.
Well, that could be fun. I mean, it's very future focused, and it's good about talking about the future that exists. That's good. I like that idea. We don't really do that, but maybe someday we will. Could be fun. But as part of if people are listening to me like, well, we don't have a hobby we could do together. I think it also is sometimes helpful to realize that the other person doesn't actually have to meet like all your needs, like either for fun or all your emotional needs either. That's what friends and family and, a therapist, if you want one or need one, that could be a great outlet for those things that you don't necessarily want to dump all of them on your partner. We certainly had things we tried to do together that just didn't work out, usually because of me not wanting to do it. So I learned to scuba dive when we were first dating. I got certified. I realized I hated it. So that was the end of that. I tried to learn skiing. I'm not really a big fan of being cold, which it turns out you're cold in diving, you're cold in skiing. And then, I don't like being cold. So all of these things just, I didn't like. And so fortunately, my husband has other people he can do these with. I mean, so diving now, our 12-year-old Sam is certified. So the two of them, when we go on vacation somewhere tropical, the two of them can dive together and go skiing, often with his brother. They do at least one weekend a year where they go skiing. So there's other people who can do some of these things. And even just, I'm not much of a movie person. And so the upside of having older children is now those, he's got a reason, like, oh, I didn't really want to go see something that's like a cultural phenomenon, like, Avengers Endgame. Like I just didn't want to go see something like that. And now there's multiple children who would want to go see Avengers Endgame. And so back when that happened, like 2 years ago, sorry, that's such a dated reference, but a lot of people aren't going to movies now. So it wasn't going to be a current one that I could pull up as everyone had to see. But yeah, so it's sometimes you have to sort of acknowledge that your spouse isn't really, or they might do stuff, but they might not really want to. And if you can find somebody else who is happy to do it with you, maybe you can find other things that you and your spouse love to do together and just let it go on the things that they don't.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to see that movie either.
So there you go. We have, dumb cartoon movies. Yeah, reason to bring the kids. So we wanted to spend a little extra time on this week's question, just because it was a bit of a doozy. But so did you want me to read it?
I think summarize it. Don't read it, and definitely leave any details out.
Leave any details out. So this was, a bit of a long one. It comes from a listener who has a big job, has two young children in her late 30s, so probably very typical of all our listeners. She says her closest friends are very similar, highly educated, highly intelligent married women with young children. She says so many of her friends have wound up in very traditional relationships and have defaulted to very traditional gender roles, very deeply asymmetric division of labor. And if there are two careers, his has jolted forward and hers has very much slowed, or in many cases stopped altogether. And she says many of these women she's known for a long time, they seemed very ambitious at the beginning. And so the thing that is bothering her is that they sort of brush it off, that, people make excuses, she says, for their husbands being not involved. The pandemic has brought this even more into stark relief. Asymmetry in childcare, household duties. She says, what annoys me most is that their wives so often make excuse for all the above. He earns more than me, so it makes sense for me to care for the kids, or he hasn't had much practice looking after more than one kid at a time, or he's so stressed with work that he needs to go out cycling for a bazillion hours for his own well-being. He needs a good night's sleep so he can go to work fresh. She accepts that not everyone needs to be highly ambitious or career driven, but it's not simply of, whether somebody is in a big job or not. It's just, why is this split as it is? And she's saying she has a more even split, but she's wondering, is this something that can, should she have these people in her life long term when they have such different approaches to things? She's worried about how they are passing along the message to the next generation. We have two daughters. We are trying to raise them in a way that it affirms their worth as individuals and the right to have fulfilling equal relationships. And so I'm distressed that my friends' kids are being raised in a way that reinforces the old gender stereotypes. So I guess it's just I don't know if it's even a question. It's just a complaint about the state of the world.
it's those are all valid thoughts. But my first instinct is that, none of us get to decide how others live. And they may be happy. I mean, if they're not and they want advice for how to even things out, or you might even talk to them about how nice it is, if there's a specific instance where you're so grateful that your husband is an equal partner, I don't think there's anything wrong with sharing that when it makes sense. But we can't control how other people parent. We can't control what others' division of labor are. Maybe, there's some woman out there that's, very much leading the unconventional role, and it's just not in your friend group yet, that is just as asymmetrical. And I think that's okay if that's right for each family. And maybe the friends that you have happen to be content with the status quo. I mean, maybe they're not. That might be something you could kind of subtly try to figure out. And if they're not, hey, tell them to listen to our podcast and join our Patreon and we will support them. But I also think, like, to some extent, like, yeah, my first thought is just you probably want to add some friends to your circle. I don't think that means you have to let go of the friends who don't necessarily do things exactly the way you do, but that you're not going to be a change agent here and keep your friendship.
Yeah, I think there's two questions here. I mean, one, if we're just looking at the friendship, I mean, it's really hard to have a friendship if you are constantly judging someone. So you either just have to let it go and decide that that is their life and you have yours. And it's as long as you are happy with yours, then it doesn't really matter what they do, as long as they're not in a situation that's, abusive or anything like that. If it's just different than what your setup is, oh, well, you can decide, are you happy to have this person in your life or are you not? But if you are happy to have them in your life, then you can't really continue a friendship and be, constantly trying to change their situation. Is there an issue for a great many people that are, ambitious women who are then derailed by a family situation where a partner has just decided that it is not their thing to be an equal partner? Yes. And I think it's worth those women asking if that is the example they want to set for their daughters. I think it's worth the men in those family asking if this is the example they want to set for their daughters. Is this what they would like their daughters to wind up in as a situation? And in many cases, they might not. And so that's something that everyone can acknowledge, that children learn from what we show. One of the reasons I am very interested in still doing things professionally is that I want my daughter to see that it is quite possible to raise children and to have a career that you care about. It is very, very important to me that she see that. And so regardless of whether I had to work or don't have to work, I want to, because I want to, and because also I want her to know that that's absolutely as valid for women to do as for men to do. Now, did I wish everyone felt that way? Of course, but I can't make everyone feel that way. So that's my take on that.
And I think your kids are going to pay very much less attention to, if you're concerned that what your friends are doing are going to rub off on your kids. Obviously, the most salient example to your own kids is going to be you by far. I mean, Genevieve says she's going to be a doctor, and that's because she sees me doing it and her dad doing it, but also like that's a normal thing to do. And I guess, I don't know, like it didn't even cross her mind that that was a gender thing. We got her pink scrubs for Halloween and now she's like decided. And I think it's because she has that example already, in her life. So the people who are going to be paying the most close attention, your kids are going to pay attention to you. So I guess if that's a concern, I wouldn't worry about it too much. And it can be a point of conversation. Like that can help you bring up, hey, like to your daughter, like, would you want to live like that? Or do you want to look for a partner that's like dad and who's awesome and lets me enjoy my career and my family?
I think very often people do look for partners who have some element of the parents that they experienced as well. It is highly unlikely that if your daughter has experienced a father who is deeply involved in her life, that she will tolerate anyone who doesn't have that sort of setup and that mindset, because it just won't even make sense to her. She'd be like, well, like it just won't make sense. And so she will see it as like a personality problem of somebody. So she wouldn't even want to be with that person. And so I think, you again, as Sarah was saying, you provide the most salient example. You can talk about these things, but, if you want to have friendships with people who live differently, you can probably do so without it causing, your daughter to question everything she's seeing at home.
But we're also all for you adding more friends that are living a life
That's true.
close to the one
That's
you
true.
love.
If all your friends are in a different sort of life circumstances than you, it would very much help to find some other friends who are in the same life circumstance with you. So again, one of the reasons we, are creating a community around Best of Both Worlds is we know that a lot of women may be around groups of other families in different situations. And so if you are looking to connect with women who are in professional careers and have young kids and are doing both and enjoying both, keep following us. We'll bring you all together. All right. So our love of the week, Sarah, real quick. What did we even write these down? I don't know that I did. Do you have something for this week?
Let's see. Yes. Okay. Even though this is not the fall episode, I bought a houndstooth pattern cloth pencil case that's very luxurious looking. And every time I look at it, it just has a very cozy fall, classy look to it. It's by the brand Notique, Notiq, and I love it.
Oh, that's great. Well, I am going to sing the praises of these giant plastic bins that we have been cleaning out the house for getting our photos taken for listing the house. And it's impossible when you're living in a house to get rid of everything that wouldn't want to have in a real estate photo. And even something like a wastebasket. You have to have one, but you don't want to photograph it. So anyway, we have been putting a lot of the kids' books and toys and various things in these bins. And then the bins can just be moved out of the room for the photos, or they can just be stacked over to the side for, if people are looking at the house or something. And we were never going to be able to get rid of all the clutter ahead of the next few weeks. But we have these giant plastic bins, and that is the solution that we are having to go with. So I'm loving my giant plastic bins.
Love it.
All right. Well, this has been Best of Both Worlds. We've been mostly talking couples and how to have time together, things you can do to make sure that spending time together is still a part of your relationship, even through the busy years. We will be back next week with more on making work and life fit together.
Thanks for listening. You can find me, Sarah, at theshoebox.com or at @the_shoebox on Instagram.
And you can find me, Laura, at lauravanderkam.com. This has been the Best of Both Worlds podcast. Please join us next time for more on making work and life work together.